One time I had this dream. I was on stage performing a hype 80s pop song with who I thought was the Prince of Pop himself, Michael Jackson. But then I blinked, and the performer pulled out a knife and he chased me into a field of purple rain. As it turns out, it wasn't Dream Michael Jackson, it was just Nightmare Prince. In today's humble opinion, we're somehow safe for work in spite of being two guys inside of one girl and sometimes each other in Trine 4, The Nightmare Prince. Now, I'm not usually the sort of person to find myself enamored with the magic of childlike wonder. Even Walt Disney World, the self-proclaimed most magical place on Earth, had trouble impressing me. For all of the spectacle, I couldn't help but notice the cracks in the chipper facade, the uncanny faces of the mascots that never shifted from their exaggerated expressions like a marionette, employee entrances and maintenance doors that littered the park, the way humans marched en masse, just a big conglomerate herd that splintered off to cram themselves into smaller lines. Where others saw fantastical fascination, I found only a cold corporate front, something insincere and vaguely sinister in the way that it wanted more from me than it appeared to say on the surface. Not in so many words, of course, I wasn't so articulate at the ripe age of 7 or 8. Back then it was just a paranoid feeling, like Mickey Mouse himself was after my soul. Now I know he was more so lying to get my wallet and my soul. When it comes to their series Trine, Frozen Byte Studios accomplishes something that not even Walt Disney himself could manage, and they did it without the foundation set by decades worth of classically animated masterpieces, earworm musical numbers, or swaths of brainwashed women that find themselves physically incapable of resisting yet another BuzzFeed quiz about which copy-paste princess they are this week based on their preferred method of preparing tacos. Every game in the series manages to captivate, and The Nightmare Prince is no exception. Their secret is a finely tuned blend of skillful balancing and masterful use of proportion. It has all of the elements it needs to create a memorable experience, and then it exercises them harmoniously so that none of them override their neighbors. The result is something akin to real magic, the kind the kids in movies feel when their parents tuck them in for a bedtime fable, which is why it's only fitting that I elaborate on my point starting with story. What would you say it was that made fairy tales so interesting as a child? For me, it's how curiously they weave novelty with simplicity. They aren't overly convoluted, with intricate story building or character development. Usually you can summarize the general plot in one sentence, but the concept itself was enough to keep you intrigued from the beginning to the end. A candy house in the middle of the forest? A princess with insanely long hair? A beanstalk that extends to the heavens? Simple concepts that tickle your curiosity. Trine 4's sentence? A trio of unlikely heroes have been called upon to rescue a lost prince with the power to bring his nightmares to life. Really gets that curiosity bubbling, right? The storytelling really isn't all that complex. There are tidbits of audio that play before and after each level, and your characters express their thoughts as you play through them. There's the occasional cutscene, of course, but there's nothing too dramatic by way of development. None of the characters really change over the course of the story, though they do play off of each other in conversation. The roguish and pragmatic thief acts as a character foil to the gluttonous knight-errant with a heart of gold, while the bumbling wizard is caught somewhere in between. This suits the flow of the gameplay well, which seamlessly transitions from physics-based puzzles that flex your creativity more than your logic, beautifully scenic interludes rife with secrets that reward explorers with hidden treasures, combat encounters, and clever boss fights, none of which are particularly meaty on their own accord, but they do serve to accent the others, each unique in how they're experienced, but none of which seem to overwhelm each other. And while normally it wouldn't sound too great to say that a game doesn't do anything especially well, in this case its casual Swiss Army knife approach to game design creates the perfect atmosphere in which to wonder and become immersed. You tinker around with ideas as they're presented, you actively search for collectibles and indicators of where they might be squirreled away, you take the time to appreciate the gorgeous visual style. You're lost in the moment, lulled along gently by the occasional quip or level completion, curious as to what comes next but in no particular hurry to get there. No game, including Trine 4, is without its faults. There were a couple of instances where the physics can get a little wonky, for example, but what goes wrong pales in comparison to the familiar zen that comes from playing The Nightmare Prince. I booted it up and I was immediately put into a fantastic mood. It may not have earth-shattering gameplay, and it may not provide the kind of grit that those desiring a tangible challenge might be looking for, but if it can beat Disney at its own game with someone like me, I'd say it's at the very least worthy of a 9 out of 10. It's a series that offers the sincerity and warmth of a cozy bedtime story, and it stays true to itself from title to title. Playing Trine 4 felt exactly like playing the first Trine, except better. It was an absolute joy. The animations were better, the design was better, the control scheme felt more responsive. Everything was so intuitive and fluid, and you can experience it alone or with friends. It might not top everyone's list, but there's nothing not to like. Thank you everyone for watching, and special thanks to Frozen Byte for continuing continuing to produce high-quality games within the Trine series. It's definitely one of the games that I have the most fond memories with. You've really got something special going here, and I hope to see many Trine games to come, if only for my own selfish enjoyment. Until next time, you can catch me over at twitch.tv/JonathanIsBadAtGames, where I'll be recording these games live and developing my opinions in real time. If you've ever wondered how that happens, that'd be how you find out. I've also got channel point redemptions that can get you involved in the video making process, so be sure to drop by sometime. They're lots of fun, I think. Remember that failure isn't the worst case scenario. To glow on with your bad selves and stay awesome.